Welcome to Face to Face, and today we're going to talk about nuclear. I'm with David Rothauser and with an actor, a writer, a playwright, a producer of documentary. And we're going to talk mainly about the ethic of nuclear weapons and how can we target the CEOs and the scientists to be responsible for the development and the production of nuclear weapon and making this immoral fear to and risk to our humanity. So, David, welcome to Face to Face. Maybe you can explain a little bit briefly how did you end up producing documentary? How did you make this documentary about Hiroshima and Nagasaki? I know you went there. So anyway, welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, David. I feel honored to be on this presentation. Yes, you were going to say something?
No. Keep going. It's okay.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. I first became interested on a personal level in the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki when I read a book by John Hersey, New York Times journalist, called Hiroshima. And it was then that I realized the long-term effects of radiation. And I began to think, this means not only the Japanese people who were bombed, this means everyone in the world, including me and my family, everyone. And you can't escape it. And so I never forgot that. And some years later, a friend of mine who is Japanese American, and her mother had been interned in the concentration camps from California, but her mother was in Heart Mountain, Wyoming. And we talked a long time, periods of time about this. And then one day my friend said to me, would you like to meet some survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? And I said, yes, I'd like to meet them. I said, but I don't want to just meet them, I want to interview them.
Wow.
And I didn't know why I wanted to interview them. I had no plan to make a film. But anyway, she introduced me to one from Hiroshima, one from Nagasaki. And they came to America purposely to apologize for starting World War II. And one of them was a musician. He played guitar and he sang beautiful folk songs in English and in Japanese and other languages. And I asked him, I said, I'm thinking about making a film. After I met him, I realized that this might make an interesting film. So he agreed to be in the film. And so I decided I didn't want to just make a film about the survivors, important as they are, but I wanted to include the younger generation as well. That's because they represent the future. So I went to Japan and I interviewed a lot of survivors and decided to do a mixed documentary, which means I created some of the documentary, a relationship between the musician that I told you about and a young girl who, in my movie, became his musical student. And he taught her about what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the movie. And so we began making that movie, and he was going to take her to Hiroshima on a trip and to take her to Nagasaki. Halfway through the movie, he died.
Oh, wow.
Really died. And I had to replace him with another survivor who was already in the movie and knew him. And so we replaced him with the other survivor, we continued and finished the film. And we shot the film in Tokyo and Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The one thing I remember mainly about the people we interviewed, all of the survivors, and we interviewed survivors from Japan and Korea as well. I wanted to involve other nations that were victims of the bombing.
Unaffected, yeah.
And all of the survivors said the same thing. They said, we are talking about our experience because we don't want the younger generation to suffer what we've suffered from the atomic bombing. Everyone said the same thing. And I was really impressed by that. They were not angry. They had no anger or animosity against the United States.
For revenge.
Yeah. They were advanced. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful thing.
So I know we can find your documentary on Amazon. People can buy them there, and
it's available on Amazon.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Or they could contact me directly. Either way is fine.
So now let's move to the your stand on the ethic of the nuclear weapons and how we should go about. I know I'm be part of the peace movement for many years, and we always fight for against the nuclear weapons and the dangers and so on and so forth. And you were like, why don't we target a very specific group of people who are responsible to making them, the scientists and the engineers, because without them, there will be no nuclear weapons. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So go for it.
Yes. For years, I had been participating in demonstrations and rallies and marches all over. I've been to Washington, D.C. so many times, I think I own real estate there. But anyway, but then, and there were many treaties signed, and I would always get excited about the treaties. And then over the years, I saw that nothing was being done. Nothing really was being done. Yeah. And then this treaty, then the new one, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons that was just signed by, I think, over 160 nations, was also very exciting and very promising. But I thought back and I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. Treaties are wonderful for the spirit. They're motivating and they get people excited. I said, but do they, the treaty alone, achieve anything? And I began asking myself more questions. And I said, what about nuclear weapons? Who makes the nuclear weapons and what's going on? Well, I learned that the only people capable of making nuclear weapons are scientists and engineers who work for the nuclear weapons industry. They're the only ones capable. No one else can make them. Consequently, I thought, well, they are the source of nuclear weapons, the source. And I think in order to prevent nuclear war, we must go to the source and somehow eliminate it. And so then I began thinking how to do this. You can't just go and say, oh, you're wrong, you can't do this, you're the enemy, and we're going to get you out of business, and you can't do it because they got the power. They have the money and the power. Yep. So then I began thinking, well, maybe there are other ways. Maybe we should meet these people and talk with them face to face, eyeball to eyeball, in a very non-confrontational manner, calm, not to aggravate them, but to just talk to them in a human one-to-one level and develop a relationship, see what happens. And that's one strategy that comes to mind.
But they don't have any ethic, because I know you mentioned the story of the notion of the ethic of a scientist or an engineer. So they don't have to be, can we develop an ethic? Can we work with scientists and engineer organization and structure and federation to see such a way then to be certified as an engineer or to be certified as a scientist? Can we get some ethic into that notion?
I'm sorry, I don't quite follow that, your line of thought.
To be engineer, you need to go to school and you need to be certified of being qualified to do X or that. Yeah. So if we have an ethic into that discipline, we might going to be able to also make it more difficult for scientists to be able to develop and work on nuclear weapons.
Yes. Yes, that's true. And there are students right now at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where a lot of these nuclear scientists come out of.
Yeah.
And they have their own movement against war in general, but specifically against nuclear weapons. And they're putting pressure on not only the president of MIT, but also on their own student body about this. And they work very hard, and I think that's one good way to go about it. But we must involve the people who are studying and designing nuclear weapons. We must involve them on a human scale, because in the final analysis, we're all in the same family, and they are part of the equation. We cannot say, well, we're going to defeat them because we have the moral right and they are wrong. It won't work. we have to have them meet us on common ground.
No, of course, but we always have the excuse, and if I don't do it, somebody else will do it instead of me. So we also need to be able to also make sure that the cycle is closed, because if not, somebody else might quit the job and say, I'm not going to do nuclear weapons, but somebody else will come and take the seat. So we need to also be able to, in some ways, border the issue in such a way then it's going to be more complicated for people to become to work on that field.
Yeah, and I think the way once you make establish a relationship with the power brokers, the people who are really in charge, and you get onto the point of discussing divestment, how they can divest from nuclear weapons and make a transition to other products that they can produce for climate change or any other scientific endeavor that they can feel comfortable with and not feel that they're being put out of business, and where we can meet on common ground. That can be explored as well.
That's a big movement right now. I mean, in New York, we have the Amalgam Bank who already does that. And you have also other institutions in the US who start to pledge of not financing or make any investment into weapons or nuclear weapons more specifically. So yeah, it's a big movement in the US. I mean, big. We wish it would be bigger, but it's.
I think it's important for it to be a grassroots movement.
Yeah.
We cannot depend on the politics as usual. We cannot depend on treaties. We cannot depend on the law. We have to make the law, and we have to do it as a devoted mass movement. It can't be just a few people. It has to be a lot of people who are devoted to this and work on it constantly. It's a daily life. It has to be part of our daily life. There's no, I think.
Yeah. So you spoke very briefly about this the new treaty who has been on banning nuclear weapons on humanitarian ground. So any thought or any update on that? I think it just reached like 90 countries in like few months, and now it's going to be adopted at the UN level, because you need to cross the 50 threshold to be able to be passed at the UN level. So what is your take on it?
Well, I think it's very encouraging that it is part of the UN. It has to be part of the United Nations as a first step. But then it needs the encouragement and the support of the U.S. government, especially, but the American people. I know.
The 5 people who have a part of the Security Council of the UN didn't sign it, so it's one of these complicated situations. But it's going to make it more difficult. I mean, like the mining treaty was very interesting, and I think it's based on that model. Then even in the US, you have no mining weapon build anymore. So even if the US didn't sign it.
Even if the U.S.
didn't sign the treaty of abolition of mine, but still the US doesn't produce any mine weapons anymore, even without signing it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that particular aspect of it.
So that's where the nuclear the banning nuclear weapon come from. It come from the model of the mine treaty where we was passed earlier a couple of years ago, and so of course the US and France and all of that didn't sign it, but it make it so complicated and so not efficient to produce them anymore. Then no one in the US, even if they don't sign the treaty, are producing any mine anymore.
So what do you suggest could be done to overcome that?
For the treaty on nuclear weapons, I think first we have to start with Europe. I think in Europe a couple of countries need to sign it in Europe, and that will break the NATO situation. And from there, I think the pressure is going to be and then maybe with COVID, we might going to be able to pressure. I mean, next year is going to be so complicated for the world. Then it might going to be an opportunity to make it immoral. The resources, the economical resources, is going to be so dear. Then hopefully we could be able to change the discussion.
It's very difficult. In a political sense, in a legal sense, I think we have to be more open-minded and be open to trying new, creative, imaginative approaches all along the way, because we cannot depend on past performances of political performances that just do not pay off.
Yeah.
We have to have an open mind and go forward in that respect. And take the risk. It is a risk, but we have to take the risk. There was a recent article in the New York Review of Books about how corporations have been dealt with in the past and how they are being dealt with today. And they said that they are so complicated. They have such many layers and layers and layers of, protecting themselves legally, politically, every way, that it's very difficult to pinpoint anyone who is, let's say, guilty of the crime of nuclear weapons or weapons in general, weapons of warfare, and they're so totally protected. And just as in the past of World War I and World War II, they're never held accountable. And it is like they are too big to fail. Yeah. But I don't believe they're too big to fail. I think that there are ways that we must explore and be open-minded to try and make this a reality.
I agree, totally agree with you. So we are almost done with this program. Do you have anything you want to plug, or any information you want to share with people before we go?
Yes, I do. Let's see here. A little bit about moral and biological survival. Moral survival is the choice that people have on how they want to survive. And if you compare that to the other part of life on Earth, the animal life on Earth, they organize themselves differently than we do. We do it intellectually, and we make all kinds of plans and reasons and rationale and laws and this, that, and the other thing that become very complicated. But the animal world works more directly, and they're very aware of their environment and their threat to them. I want to cite one example, which I think is brilliant. This happened about maybe 8 months ago, or maybe a little longer. There were lions on the I think it was in Nigeria, who were being attacked by poachers, and one of the pride of lions got together and they organized. I don't know how they went about it mentally, but they organized, and they snuck up behind the poachers. Poachers were unaware of the lions, and the lions attacked the poachers and put an end to their threat. But it was interesting to me that they actually organized and did this in a planned way that was successsul. But let me cite one other example that I think is very important.
We are not the only one who organized.
Yeah. There's a black musician in America. His name is Daryl Davis. And he took it upon himself to learn as much as he could about the Ku Klux Klan. And then he went and he introduced himself to the Klan. He made friends with the Klan. They made friends with him. Over the years, he was able to get dozens of Klan members to renounce their membership and leave the Klan. Here's one man who took it upon himself to do something that no one else would do.
He was African American, no? He was
African American, yeah.
And it was, I mean, even the more interesting, it was he was able to get into the Klan as being an African American, with it's not.
He didn't want to join the Klan.
Yeah.
No, he just wanted to make friends with them, meet them on some level that most people would never do.
African American is maybe not him, but somebody else was able to join the.
Yeah, that was another film. That was another. That was another person. Daryl Davis. There's a documentary film about him. You should take a look at it. I'll send you the link. All
right, perfect. All right. Anything else?
No, I think that's
Thank you very much for being on the show. That was.
Thank you. Thank you, David, for having me. I really appreciate it. Peace.
Exactly. That was your show Face to Face, and keep watching your news on presenza.com, and we hope to see you and hear from you very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.